All wood floors have one thing in common. They're only as good as the subfloor beneath them. Everything in your home interacts with your subfloor, so making the right or wrong choice can have long-term effects. Subfloors are not seen, but that doesn't make them any less important. Without a good, solid, flat subfloor with great nail-holding power, even the best hardwood flooring will not perform as it should. Like all wood products, moisture is a subfloor's worst enemy. When a roofless, partially built structure takes on moisture, it has a huge effect on the subfloor. After gathering information online, I was left very confused, as each product made very good points on why it was better than its competitor. Whether it compared OSB subfloors against plywood or OSB against other brands of OSB. We decided to do an experiment to see what held the most truth. In the OSB, we found there are 3 price ranges and quality ranges. So we chose 3 products which we considered to be good, better, and best. And in the plywood, we chose to test 5/8 and 3/4 inch. OSB, or oriented strand board, is manufactured from heat-cured adhesives and rectangular-shaped wood strands arranged in cross-oriented layers. The end product is an engineered wood panel that shares many of the same strength and performance characteristics of plywood. While OSB was developed quite recently, it has become more popular than plywood and has been since the year 2000. Today, nearly 3 times as much OSB is produced in North America than plywood. Most manufacturers have a good, better, and best option for sale. This is based on how much resin is integrated into the wood to resist water absorption. Less resin means less expensive but more susceptible to moisture. It seems the higher the price, the more moisture resistant the product. The moisture resistance is advertised with no sand warranties that are measured in days. The least expensive OSB options have no warranty. The medium quality OSB subfloors have a 180 to 200 day no sand warranty, and the best material typically has a 365 to 500 day to even a lifetime no sand warranty. The limited warranties of these products are very long and it is difficult to understand what the warranty does and does not cover. Here is one exclusion from a warranty we saw. Sustained cascading or pooling of water, immersion in water or other abnormal exposure to moisture, or exposure to moisture avoidable by good and customary maintenance practices. Also, they state that the product must be stored indoors before and after installation according to APA standards, which in my translation means the subfloor can't get wet. Unless homes are constructed in an indoor facility, it is inevitable that the subfloor will get wet. Plywood is made from thin sheets of rotary cut veneer. Thin layers of wood are peeled from a spinning log. These layers are dried, cross-laminated, and glued together with a hot press. Throughout the thickness of the panel, the grain of each layer is positioned perpendicular to the adjacent layer. Since it is made of layers of wood rather than small strands, plywood has a less rough appearance than OSB. Plywood warranties are very similar to that of the OSB warranties. The National Wood Flooring Association installation guidelines state that on a truss joist spacing of 16 inch, the industry standard for single panel subflooring is a nominal 5/8 CDX Exposure 1 plywood subfloor panels, or 23/32 OSB Exposure 1 subfloor panels. These guidelines establish minimal standards, not best practices. These are minimum standards and do not take job site conditions into consideration, because job site conditions vary widely based on geographic location. In the Northeast region, a subfloor can get rained on 3 to 5 times before the structure is closed in. We wanted to simulate how this level of moisture affects the different subfloor options, so we decided to perform an experiment replicating extreme job site conditions. The 3 keys to a good performing subfloor are: number 1, a subfloor must have fastener holding power that is not affected as the subfloor gains and loses moisture. Number 2, a subfloor must be stiff and strong to prevent a bouncy feel. Hardwood floors will squeak if they're able to move on a weak subfloor. And number 3, a subfloor must be level and flat, not just at the joints, but throughout the whole floor. Any variation in the subfloor will show up when the hardwood flooring is installed. NWFA standards state that the subfloor must be flat, allowing only a 1/4 inch over 10 feet or 3/16 of an inch variance over 6 feet. Here are the subfloor products we tested. Number 1, 23/32 by 4x8 blue ribbon OSB sturdy floor. This was stored inside at 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 2, DryGuard 23/32 OSB with a 180-day no sand warranty. This subfloor was also stored inside at 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 3 was Advantech 23/32 OSB with a 500-day no sand warranty. This again was stored indoors at 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Number 4, 5/8 inch CDX Exposure 1 plywood. This was stored in a covered but not heated lumber shed. Number 5, 3/4 inch CDX Exposure 1 plywood. This also was stored in a covered but not heated lumber shed. Here's our testing procedure. We cut the 4x8 sheets into 2x4 sections. Each piece was weighed and the moisture content was tested, and we also measured the thickness with calipers. This was recorded on the piece with marker as well as on paper. 2 sets of samples were submerged into a tank filled with water. Samples were taken out of the water after 22 hours, weighed, and then remeasured and returned to the tank. The samples were then taken out after 68 hours, weighed and remeasured, and left out of the tank. The wet subfloors were nailed and stapled and then exposed to 22 degrees Celsius and 20% relative humidity until the subfloors reached 6 to 8% moisture content. Once all of the subfloors reached 6 to 8%, the nails and staples were removed to assess and test the holding power of each. The dry samples were also nailed and stapled, and the nails and staples were removed to test the holding power for that as well. The holding power was based on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the easiest to remove and 5 being the most difficult. This is what happened when we tested the blue ribbon OSB. After 22 hours, it gained 60% in weight and 23% in thickness. After 68 hours, it gained 96% in weight and 37% in thickness on the outside edges. Pieces cut out of the center away from the edges gained 25.5% in thickness. Of the OSB products we tested, blue ribbon dried out the quickest and the most evenly. However, once it expanded, it did not shrink from its wet thickness to the original thickness. The holding power of the subfloor not exposed to any moisture is a barely satisfactory rating of 3.165. The fastener holding power of the soaked sample that we dried out was the worst rating we tested at 1. When exposed to any moisture, this quality of subfloor fails, putting our product at risk. This makes a callback for squeaks very likely. This subfloor product will not be covered under our warranty. The DryGuard OSB gained 46% in weight and 13% in thickness after 22 hours. After 68 hours, it gained 54.5% in weight and 20.5% in thickness. Once it had been exposed to moisture, DryGuard did not return to its original thickness and had very poor nail holding power. Here's what happened to the Advantech OSB. After 22 hours, it gained 14% in weight and 7.5% in thickness. After 68 hours, it gained 42% in weight and 15.5% in thickness. Pieces cut out of the center, away from the edges, gained 12% in thickness. Of the OSB, the drying out of this product was the most uneven, and it took a full 30 days to reach 6 to 8% moisture content. Once the subfloor expanded, it did not shrink from its wet thickness to its original thickness. This is what happened to the 5/8 plywood. After 22 hours, it gained 33% in weight and 4.5% in thickness. After 68 hours, it gained 34.5% in weight and 7.3% in thickness. Pieces cut out of the center, away from the edges, gained 6.5% in thickness. Here's what happened to the 3/4 inch plywood. After 22 hours, it gained 21% in weight and 2.5% in thickness. After 68 hours, it gained 35.5% in weight and 4.5% in thickness. Pieces cut out of the center, away from the edges, gained 4.2% in thickness. This is a photo of the different subfloors from left to right. We have Blue Ribbon OSB, DryGuard OSB, Advantech OSB, 3/4 inch plywood, and 5/8 plywood. The pieces that weren't exposed to any moisture are in the front, and the pieces that have been exposed to moisture and re-dried are in the back. The two major findings from our test were that when exposed to moisture, the OSB expanded significantly, and when it was re-dried, it did not shrink back to its original thickness. Plywood expanded minimally in thickness, and when it dried out, it returned to its normal thickness. In the manufacturing process, the plywood veneers are cross-laminated to make the subfloor more stable and create a balance between the layers. When one layer expands lengthwise, the next layer will expand widthwise. With all of those layers pulling against each other, the movement is very restricted. OSB is manufactured by gluing and compressing wood chips together. These pieces are woven together in sheets that are 5 to 6 times thicker than when the sheets are compressed. When exposed to moisture, the OSB will expand and become thicker and less compact. This creates voids between the wood chips, providing less structure to hold the fasteners in place. The plywood we tested had significantly more fastener holding power than OSB. Although the Advantech OSB had similar fastener holding power to the 5/8 plywood. The OSB also swelled much more at the joints than it did in the center. Overall, we found that plywood outperformed OSB and is a better subfloor option. We also found a significant difference in performance between the various OSB options we tested. If you would like more information or to view the full study, please visit our website.